All right, so today on the podcast, we are going to have Zach Materne, who is the industry expert behind insurance.
And your brother.
And he's my brother. As a matter of fact, he's also related to me.
And my friend.
Zach and I grew up in the dealership, the one downstairs, this dealership, owning and operating it. And so Zach took those almost 2 decades of operator experience and then went to an area that is really, I feel like, not very well understood, which is insuring the dealership.
Why do you think that it's not understood?
Glad you set me up for that one.
Yeah, some foreshadowing.
Well,
there.
here's some foreshadowing. In this episode, you're not only going to learn a lot about what coverage is and what type of coverages there are, you're also going to realize how little I understand of insurance, which maybe I'm alone. Maybe all of you understand all the different crazy nuances of what is and is not covered. But man, we took all that information, that brain dump that my brother was able to do on here, and then I tried to boil it down to some simple info, and I got it wrong.
And he said so.
Yeah, and so I think the important part is it is way more complicated than something we could figure out in an hour. And it really just drives home the point that you should have somebody to talk to about your insurance and somebody you can trust and somebody who understands what insurance coverage covers what.
Understanding insurance in this industry specifically, because it is extremely complicated.
It is way more. I thought it was complicated before this podcast, and now I realize it's more complicated than I thought it was complicated before. So find an expert, and this guy, Zach Materne, is the expert we use. He's also my brother, and he's probably the expert you should at least call and talk to about what coverage you need for your stores.
And Justin's on this one. Everybody loves Justin.
Yeah, and Justin's on it. Everybody loves Justin. Justin also is covered by Zach as well. So anyway, enjoy the episode. All right, so hey, look who's here. It's Zach Materne.
What's up, guys? How are y'all?
Zach, pretty good.
It's my brother.
Happy Thursday.
Was I supposed to keep that
Yeah.
to ourselves? Was I not supposed to mention it was my brother until the end?
We should have pretended like we just met.
We should have. Like, it's weird. How did you get your last name?
I don't see you on the monitor. Are you on the picture?
Yeah, it's fine. We'll have a full screen of it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's
making
pretty-
sure. Just
You don't need to worry about that. I can see it on
technical
mine.
difficulties.
Hey,
Yeah.
can we talk about the elephant in the room really quick? Is Zach's wearing white pants? Are those white pants?
These are off-white pants.
Oh, by the way,
You can't wear white
this
pants
is
after Labor
Justin
Day.
Watson. Justin, this is Zach Materne.
Justin Watson.
Nice to meet you.
So
Is it
just
is
got
it
done
late?
with band practice.
Oh, nice.
How often do you play
Is
those
it,
guitars behind you there, Justin? How often do you play those guitars?
Oh, never. I actually don't know how to play guitar. For real, that's not even a joke. I like them, and come at me, bro. I don't care. I have more than this too.
That's great.
But I tried to learn. It was difficult, and I stopped. And but I still kept getting them. I really like them. They look good. They're great art, and they're fun to play with.
To make noises out of occasionally.
Oh, dude, I have an amp and a pedal board. I can make like weird laser sounds. Yeah.
Like I also have many guitars in my house. I haven't played any of them in multiple years now.
There was a point when you could, though.
Yeah,
This is the perfect dichotomy of Justin, you not having kids and me having kids. Is I used to play guitar a lot, and I had lots of guitars. Then I had kids, and I needed money, so gone went guitars. And so I have no guitars and can play. You've got a wall full of guitars,
And
and
can't play.
just for the for the hell of it.
So to round this conversation out, I don't own a guitar or play guitar.
Yeah.
But you do
Yeah,
sing.
I do sing, and I
You
do
sing.
enjoy guitar.
Yeah.
You sing like a Backstreet Boy, which is nice.
you do.
Beautiful voice of an angel.
Backstreet Boy in the 40s.
Yes. It's like a fine line.
It's
The
a niche.
Backstreet Boys.
It's a niche.
Yeah, actually,
It is
okay.
a
So we should
niche.
probably explain what that means. I don't know if you want to go into this, but too bad we're airing all your secrets. Maybe not secrets because it's all over social media. Zach is a world-renowned barbershop quartet singer.
Yeah,
World
that's
renowned
true.
is an interesting
Understatement.
Understatement.
Well, the world of barbershop singers isn't a huge one, but you know all of them.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I got into motorcycles.
Yeah. Have you
Yeah.
met Mike Rowe yet? Mike Rowe is a
He is my
famous
first
barbershop.
barbershopper, yeah.
Yeah.
Is he really? I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I know, right? Really makes you feel like, oh, well.
So is Trent Lott.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Mhm.
Wow.
He's a good man.
Huh. Small circles that you run in.
Yeah,
Why aren't you doing some sort of voiceover for like maybe really easy jobs?
Do those exist?
Or you yeah, you just go there and just be like AI. They're using AI.
I think you're on the right path, but obviously it should be clean jobs, which brings us to Zach's new job, insurance.
It is a very clean job.
Very clean job. He's never getting dirty. Look at these fingernails. Look at that. It's like fresh manicures going on
They're
right
very
now.
smooth. You can't feel them.
He's got no,
there's no
They're
calluses.
moisturized.
Nice.
no
The
calluses.
life of
at all.
insurance. Yeah, it is hard to throw down like a badass persona at a bar and then follow it up with like, well, I'm in insurance.
Yeah, well, I guess that's the important part is that when you're the motorcycle guy, it sounds like a really badass persona, but it's kind of like having a bunch of guitars on the wall and never being able to use them.
To be fair, in the industry, Zach is the bad boy
Yeah, he's the bad
Of-
insurance guys for
of,
sure.
of the
Oh,
insurance industry. Yeah.
that's how we introduce.
I've
This is my bad
I've
boy.
been out with him and some of his guys, and they're like, dude, you got to watch out for this guy, which truthfully they do need to watch out for him because he's actually a terrible human in disguise. But yeah, he is the bad boy of the insurance industry, and it's now how we're going to introduce him.
Yes, Zach Materne, the bad boy of the insurance industry, and you can tell because he also sings Barbershop.
Yeah, rugged.
Boy, bad boyism.
I came up with a new tagline
Ooh.
for my industry on the drive over here.
Oh God.
You tell.
Speaking with Nick, my colleague on a dealership we're working on right now, and it's the world is upside down. Insure it.
No, there we go. Good.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
It's a really so now we're gonna sing it like a tag.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. There should be a Barbershop Quartet tag. So I have one for my store. When your P&L is upside down,
You still have to
Light
pay
a
the
fire.
premiums.
oh right, that's right. Yeah, no, insure it.
When your P&L's upside down, insure it. That's such a good one. Yeah. Right. That is how we introduce insurance today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so for listeners, obviously you've now recognized that Zach is my brother. The Dealer Lab, which is the dealership that's downstairs, was also the dealership that we started and operated together for 17 years until we sold it. When Zach got out, he went the how do I help stores not go out of business route. I guess I did the same thing in more of a consulting way. You turned it into a insuring people kind of way. So tell us a little bit about that journey, running the store, then recognizing how horribly insured we were, and then what you do now.
Well, when we sold the store, I really didn't know what the next step was going to be because it's if we're going to peel back even more of what it's like to be an operator, when you're in the process of selling your business, you can't necessarily alert people that you're selling your business. And so knowing that I had to find my next move at 37 years old, it was very hard to let people know that I was looking for a job when I was still operating a business that had employees and needed to continue to create revenue and those pieces as well. So there was definitely a soul searching moment in the fall of 2019 that I called fun employment. And now I can laugh about it, but still paying the debts. But we were, to kind of, I guess, talk about maybe if we have operators listening to this and kind of what next steps are. It's a very lonely place, especially if you've lived in one industry your entire life. And anyone who operates in this industry understands that it's incredibly complex, and the skill sets that you have from being an operator and being a great operator like we were really are transferable in so many different places. But what that looks like on a resume doesn't necessarily translate into a corporate environment. Yeah. I was not interested in going off on my own again.
You mentioned it doesn't translate. We had a conversation. Daniel Willoughby was on the podcast last week, and he was talking about all the things that are included in building in like operating a dealership and all the requirements of fixing stuff and selling stuff and inventory management and titling and all this administrative work. I mean, it is like you have to be a jack of all trades to be an operator in a dealership, which is so true. But
not to mention just running a business.
Yeah,
like general business.
Yeah, you're running a store That's a business that's so complex.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll tie that back into how I apply that in my role as an insurance producer. But what ended up happening was that I got to the point where people, I was like, I got to figure this out. Right?
Yeah.
It's getting to be the end of the year, and there's only so many credit card limits you can max, and you need to figure out what the next steps are because I have a family and kids, and a wife and a house and everything else. So. I ended up having a customer of ours that road race Thruxton's with us, and he was like, "Hey, you ever tried insurance?" And I was like, "I do not want to be the insurance guy, but I needed to do something, so I became the insurance guy." And so I ended up working.
Very
I
inspiring.
ended up working. I mean, at some point, you just got. I mean, like necessity creates opportunity, right? So I like to say that I'm a student of business. I think that our experience in the dealership, what I call my MBA, which I think I'm in my second MBA, of just kind of learning how things work. There's an opportunity here to figure things out and learn about something you didn't learn about before. And so I went into this with an open mind, not really knowing what to expect. Started in February of 2020. Got first thing I had to do was get licensed because I couldn't even talk to clients until I had a license. So I do that. It's Mardi Gras, so it's kind of like haphazard days, and get back from Mardi Gras, take my test.
By the way, for those of you who don't know, Mardi Gras is a multi-month long season in New Orleans. It's not just like a day or a weekend. It is chaos for a whole 2 months.
But then the last 2 weeks of it are really, I mean, it's really impossible to, especially depending on where you live in the city, to avoid being in it. And where I live in the city does not allow me to avoid being in it. And I love being in it too, but it's kind of like it's a reset. And as we sit here right now, this all kicks off, these 2 weeks kick off for us tomorrow, which is, I mean, I'm just a little stressed out right now. But anyway, so we end up, I end up in the insurance world going, what am I going to do? Everyone's telling me you're not going to pass the test the first time. No one in this industry has passed the test the first time. I passed the test the first time.
Oh,
pretty proud of myself.
Mark, you passed the test the first time.
Pretty proud of myself. Go to celebrate, and then you turn the news on, and there's this COVID thing happening. So, as soon as I pass my test, and the next week I'm supposed to start hitting the ground running, the whole world shuts down. Which, at the time, was terrifying. In hindsight, was actually a blessing because it allowed me to be able to kind of slow things down. I was working for a big corporation. They kind of just said, "Hey, you're new, hang out, like." We got you. Why don't you start looking at policies, start like kind of spending some time in the weeds of this, which had COVID not happened, I wouldn't have had that time. I would have had to go right into it and just kind of start.
And been like figuring out as you do it.
Yeah, remember that? Hey, calling people I don't know or calling people I do know, being like, hey, remember when I sold motorcycles 6 months ago? Yeah, now I'm an insurance expert. So that it was so it kind of gave me a little bit of time in that spring of 2020 to start figuring things out.
Like really become an expert.
And so one of the things, so as I'm sitting there and learning and doing these pieces, I'm going, you know what? The entire time we were in this industry, no one could ever answer insurance questions. Mm-hmm. There was even 20 clubs or any of the consulting or the OEMs. It's all requirements for everything that we do as operators, but no one could ever explain it. So my goal was to kind of like, well, let me start playing around with what this looks like and really going after this. And spent those months figuring out what it is, what kind of coverages you need, what these coverages are, using it to kind of just learn.
It's like literally reading through every single line of contracts of policies.
So then I hit summer of 2020, and a friend of ours owns a luxury used car dealership here in New Orleans, and I said, hey, look,
Alex Katz, good job, NOLA Motor Cars.
Yeah,
great,
if you're in New
guy.
Orleans sales, I just got a battery this morning.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, every day is $500.
Oh yeah, well, good point.
It got cold, and then my battery died. I said, hey, look, can I use you as a guinea pig on this piece? And he said, yeah. So I get all excited. I go back to my office. I'm like, hey guys, I got a client. What do I do? And they're like, well, what's the business? I said, it's a car dealership. They said, well, we don't know how to do any of that. We are a oil and gas and marine and engineering practice. So it's like, well, what do I do? They're like, you can figure it out. So then I'm like, well, I got to figure this out. So start cold calling markets, realize we don't have appointments in certain places. And anyway, I get that business placed. We do it all. I'm literally hand filling out applications because no one knew what to do. So all of this to say, this education I've had has been from a very elementary level to where I am now 6 years later and where I'm living. Ultimately, where I was not the place where I could be successful there,
You're talking
because
about the previous
previous
insurance company. Yeah.
brokerage I was with was not. I couldn't be successful there because what I was looking to do didn't fit within their purview of how business is placed. And but I knew that there was this opportunity here. And actually, while I was still at my previous brokerage, once I got NOLA Motor Cars done, my next move was to talk to Greg, who Justin worked for, and we sold the business to. It still works with now. And I just said, Greg, look, let me be the guinea pig. Let me start looking at your stuff. And what Greg at the time had more stores than he has now, but multiple stores. Every store was on a different policy. Every store was with a different broker. Every store was on a different date. So there was no like centralized place where the dealership could have a point of contact. Because what's really important in this is that you're not just buying an expensive PDF that you don't want to think about every year. This is something you have to have to operate. And so why not make it as simple as possible? And so what I was able to do from there is, start looking at these groups of dealerships that were not placed all in one place, and start combining them and then creating the strategy, because the relationship begins when the client and broker start the process of going to market. Once we get you bound, then that's like the first 10% of the relationship. Beyond that, the relationship is, you need certificates. You need to know what you need to, you're buying a new location, you're changing your business. This is a constant communication back and forth between the broker and the client. And that doesn't necessarily, people don't view it that way. And my goal has been to really come in and say, this is a consultative role. You're paying these premiums. The percentage of those premiums go to pay us to service the account. It's really just as much about the premium as it is about the service that you're getting beyond the premium, and the service you're getting when a claim happens, and all these pieces of it that are the nuts and bolts where the rubber meets the road in this space. So that's really that was the work I did in the first 2.5 years I was there. Got recruited to join an agency that was where I am now, AP or Commercial Risk Management, which is part of the Cell Brokerage Risk Management Group, where I went in there saying, I had this idea. I want to create this vertical within the company, and this is what we're going to have to do to get there. And we business planned for about 6 months before I started, and now we're 3 years into the plan, and it's worked. We were very intentional with making sure that we marketed ourselves as the experts in the space. Got involved with the National Power Sport Dealer Association, talking to 20 clubs, being at AIM Expo, but approaching it not from a, hey, I want to sell you something, approaching it from this is a consultative role.
Yeah, training what insurance looks like.
And what's been so great is that coming at it from this perspective is, look, the sales cycle on this is very long, and timing is important. I may meet you today and you renew tomorrow, and we can't talk for another 6 months really until you're going through this process again. But let's start the conversation now so we can get going there. So over the last 3 years, I've talked to over 200 dealerships, dealership groups, and I have amassed, if I haven't written your business yet, I've amassed a big collection of policies and understanding how things are placed in different parts of the country, knowing where I can be successful, where I can't be successful. But just because I can't be successful in placing your business doesn't mean we can't have a conversation for me to advise you on what things look like.
Yeah.
And so
because you've actually lived the thing, and you also know how, like, what things go wrong and what things don't, and how to protect them.
And what's unique in this business is that you don't find a lot of producers that have also operated a business and operated a dealership. And so I have clients outside of this space, and probably there's a lot of applicable places where this comes into play, that are retail oriented or hospitality oriented. But I'm approaching this from a perspective of understanding where the client's coming from, and how they're, every single thing that's coming at them every day. And making sure that we can create peace of mind with them.
Yeah, you recognize that you're a one part of this much larger equation, not like the only thing.
Well, and the biggest part of this too is that everyone, at the end of the day, this industry has really been commoditized. And I think if you're operating a beauty salon, in a strip mall, you can look at insurance as a commodity. But if you're operating a high touch business like a dealership, or a dealership with multiple locations, or really any business where your exposure is so big, you've got to step back, and you've got to start. The relationship cannot be just competing with someone else. The relationship needs to be trusting, hiring the person to trust that they're going to handle it correctly.
Yeah.
And by saying hiring is that there's a tremendous amount of work that we do on the front end where we are not paid for this.
Yeah.
We don't get paid until the policy binds. So we can spend weeks and months, getting this information from clients without collecting a dollar.
Yeah.
Knowing that what the outcome is that we want to make sure that when we hit the point of binding, that we're your people for as long as you're in business.
Okay, good. Yeah, it's kind of like picking out your attorney. It's like this is gonna be your person.
You need to really start looking at insurance like you look your insurance broker, like you look at your CPA and your attorney. They're part of that circle of trust, and you need to get ahead of it too. There's where my success in a lot of this has been working with. I've had very few situations in the insurance world where I walk into a well-oiled machine, talk to a CFO, and I'm just taking over a policy, and we're just organizing things and because whatever the relationship with the previous broker had collapsed, or there was something else I was able to offer that they were not able to offer. The majority of the businesses that I work with have been through some sort of growth phase. My larger clients. And they've grown, and as they've grown, no one's been talking to them about risk strategy.
Yeah, risk grows at the same time.
Risk grows at the same time. So I've had multiple times where kind of talking about Greg who bought our store. He had all these different policies for different stores, and there's places where you can share limits. There's places where you can you're not just paying bills, you don't know what you're paying, and so the conversation starts there. And what I've learned, for me, it's about how I start the conversations with clients through the experiences that I've had, because you don't really start seeing the meat and potatoes of these policies until you've had a client for a couple of years, and you get that call in the middle of the night that their building's on fire, or you get the call in the middle of the night that hey, I just got served with a employment lawsuit, or all these things that happen. So so the
sometimes a truck drives through the front doors.
Trucks drive through the front doors.
That would never happen.
Somebody with a fake identity bought 7 motorcycles from me last month.
Sometimes a truck drives through the front doors twice and then once through the back wall.
It's all in 3 weeks.
That's great. That's a cartoon. It's a cartoon.
That's not real.
It's not
I
real.
will say this, Zach, not to interrupt, but before you, I don't even know who my insurance rep was, which was interesting. And I think a lot of people are in that kind of place where it's like they just pay the bill that shows up.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's a lot of people who have a relationship with their reps, which I think is a very interesting tactic. Is like you're basically having conversations about risk appetite with individual owners based off of what they do. And the rest of it is just handled because, dude, I never knew my Zurich guy. It was just Zurich was just a bill you paid, and that goes way back, but that I don't think people were talking about insurance in a meaningful way, because a lot of it just came down to what was the cheapest policy you could get your hands on. And we've seen over doing business in so many different places with all the stories that we can tell, which by the way, we should tell a few because I've got some good ones. Where just the cheapest didn't approach that particular dealer's risk appetite, and then they were surprised when that shit wasn't covered or was over covered. And they're overpaying because they just didn't know. And I think that motorsports especially, we have a very short attention span, and insurance and Excel spreadsheets take up a lot of it really fast. And so it turns into this conversation of dude, what is the cheapest one?
Yeah.
And there's no more conversation. But when you stepped in, it was, hey, I know Zach's not going to screw me over. Here's what I don't want to have to pay for at some point. And then all of a sudden it happens. And I honestly, I have no idea what all the specifics of my personal policies, right? But I do know what I'm accepting as risk and what I'm not at a level that you've been able to explain to me in a layman's terms, which is valuable to me to have a quality rep and not a sale. This isn't a commercial for you. I'm just saying have a rep in the industry that does this part of that business that you trust and you speak to about things. Yeah. Because other than that, you're like, what's my Totally. Well, we would back in the day, we used to make decisions based off of what our deductible was, and that was it, right?
Yeah.
If it's more than the deductible or less than the deductible, you make a claim, right? And then what that turned into is we just never made claims on anything because but there was no understanding of why we even had insurance, you know? And recently, I've used insurance a couple of times where it was a catastrophic loss. I mean, we had 7 motorcycles stolen
Yeah.
through fraud at a dealership to a sales manager that was
To be part of
uh,
said fraud.
well, no, but just not maybe just not paying attention. But still, it was and that was a very interesting conversation because like how they were stolen turned into what was covered. Never knew that, right? You just assume, you know, and then
And in
knowing
that
that you don't.
particular situation, had that store been insured as the way it was before, there would have been no coverage for the piece,
Zero.
which is called
Right.
false pretense, which is something that I uncovered very quickly in this.
Yeah.
Just through going, okay, when I started, I said, okay, let's think of every single time in the dealership we had something that could have been a claim that we never had coverage for.
Yeah.
Where is that hole?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but and you hit a couple of points here, Justin. I want to get back on. I think number one, the conversation needs to be number one, like find who your person is and stick with that person, and have the real conversation of what.
Are
what the
there any
strategy's gonna
people
be.
in this industry? Like, I feel like that was just a
There are
void.
lots of people that sell insurance. There are not a lot of people that understand this.
What I'm
business.
saying, like
yeah,
with
yeah.
my plate, I just went to my local guy.
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know?
and honestly, at your size, I mean, there's not a whole lot that we can do. It's about revenue size too. There's
Yeah.
not- there is a piece of this that doesn't have a whole lot of flexibility, but we can still service those and have those conversations with you. But as you get bigger, the options become bigger. But there's not a whole lot of options to begin with. So the conversation needs to first start with trusting someone to do it. And look, I'll tell you from my perspective, if I take I want you to have we have to have complete transparency in the process. If you don't want to give me your premiums, we're not going to have a conversation. I can't negotiate like we negotiate on buying a motorcycle where, oh, you want to save $1,000? Let me go back to the desk and talk to the sales manager. That's not how this works. It's based off of the exposure. It's based off of what you're insuring. So if you're unhappy with what the premiums are, let's look at deductibles. Let's look at limits. Like, do we need to adjust these things to get there? We can't just be like, hey, shave $2,000 off and we'll get this guy bought.
Yeah, but that's still, I mean, all that is so hard to wrap your head around. You're like, okay, well, what limit or what deductible? I think the difference is, okay, let's talk about a scenario that could happen on the showroom floor. What happens if your technician changes a tire, customer goes out, crashes? What covers that?
That's completed operations of your general liability policy. That's the biggest part of your garage policy.
Okay, completed operation.
Completed
of general
operations,
liability.
yeah.
Okay, so that's the biggest piece.
Or errors and omissions. Yeah, those are all baked into the policy.
Okay, so let's talk about those components because I'm an idiot when it comes to insurance. And I'm sure our listeners all know a lot more about insurance than I do. So bear with me that I'm asking these dumb questions.
I was always under the impression, unless my building caught on fire, I'm not using insurance for anything.
Yeah.
So we got a couple things going here. So I do want to, before we get into this detail, number one, it's about what is your risk tolerance, right?
Okay.
If you're someone that like can't, like, if you live in a coastal area where your building maybe is worth $3 million and the wind and hail deductible, I can raise that wind and hail deductible to 10%, and you're comfortable to say, hey, let's do that so we can get a better price and get a better market, and I'm fine with being able to come out of pocket if we have a total loss.
Okay.
That's where we can start. Now, if you're not, if you can't do that, these are the financial implications of those things. But the other piece too, Justin, you were talking about claims. The claim doesn't, when something arises, immediately reach out to the broker, make sure that you have a conversation, document, get everything you need. Within our team, the person that runs our claims department was an adjuster for 30 years. So there's a whole bunch of consulting that we can offer before we even contact the underwriter to say, this is what we need to do. This is, let's, if it's a situation where maybe you're in a building where the tenant above you has an issue that sprinklers go off and leak into your space, let's see what their coverage is first. We'll advise here and then advise when we need to engage your coverage. These are all the things that you're paying for in your premium as well.
So you're saying like the conversations, and actually we had a situation recently. There was a guy who crashed a Vespa and then blamed it on the brake lever snapping when he grabbed the brake lever. Doesn't sound like a realistic thing at all, but it was nice to be able to call you up and have that conversation of like, how do we handle this in a way that's going to, if we do end up getting sued, what do we have to do in a healthy way instead of just avoiding it the entire time?
If you're served with some sort of liability lawsuit, I mean, the immediate thing you need to do is we need to get the underwriter involved so they can assign the attorney.
Yeah.
That can then, I mean, those are the situations where you want to get the insurance involved. But let's talk about a property claim. Let's say you have a $5,000 deductible. Someone goes out on a used Bonneville and crashes it on a test ride, or a mechanic crashes it. You know, what is, you know, the coverage is covering the cost of the vehicle, not the retail of the vehicle. Maybe it's worth $6,000. Do you want to make a claim that you're only going to get $1,000? These are the conversations that we can have.
And that the conversation with you isn't going to increase my rate. Is that right?
The conversation with me, no.
I mean, I know that is.
Yeah, people think about that.
That is a legit concern. It was a concern of mine before to be like, okay, I could even bring this up because if I mention it and then I don't go with the coverage or I didn't do this, does that ding me?
The conversation with the broker does not increase the rate. Once we create the claim, then there's an open claim. Now the claim, you may decide you want to open the claim, like in a situation where if you serve papers and you've got to respond within 30 days.
Yeah.
If you retain your own attorney, they may not get paid through the insurance company. You want to make sure we talk to the underwriter and say, can they retain their own counsel, or do you want to use your counsel? If they allow that, then you get their attorney to talk with them. If they don't, then let's open the claim. Let's at least make sure that you're doing everything you need to do to stay, you know, within the parameters of whatever's happening.
Yep.
But if nothing happens, then it'll show up as whatever the costs were to hire the attorney, and zero claim is paid. If there is a claim, then that's why these are the types of things your insurance are there for. What we needed to make sure too, from the broker perspective, is that claims don't stay open for a very long time.
Okay. Because
every year at renewal, the underwriters are going to want to see 3 to 5 years of loss runs, and open claims can create issues with being able to get renewals. The other piece of this too is that it doesn't behoove anybody to move underwriters every year. Once we get you in a good spot, it really makes sense to stay there for a minute, unless something in the market changes or something happens where you've got some kind of catastrophic loss where they're not going to renew you. But these are the kind of strategy that needs to happen all year round. You can't just think about this stuff 30 days before renewal and when a claim happens. This is a conversation that those touch points need to happen throughout the year. And other things too. I mean, if you're making these expansion plans, we were talking about making sure we're like your attorney and your CPA. We need to be consulted as well. If you're negotiating a new lease, your attorney needs to review that lease, and your insurance broker needs to review that lease to make sure, because some of this is boilerplate language that's negotiable for limits that are unattainable for some of these businesses.
Okay. Well, this has been really fun, but let's get into some stuff that I can apply to actual thought process. Did you have something, Justin?
Well, I was just going to say, I think it's worth saying that as an industry, just as business owners, we should rethink the way we negotiate things. I think that placing value in the right spot is super important, because I've worked with Zach for a long time with a bunch of different dealers that would pop up, like you're saying, where it was a renewal process and it was like, hey, can you get me done right now? And if you can, is it going to be cheaper? And can I switch to you in the next, 10 days? And I think that the value of having the proper information, proper way to look at things is something that we should negotiate on more, right? Is that the dollar doesn't necessarily matter as much as it is the access to the right information, right?
Yeah.
And so I just think that's,
you can always make it cheaper, right? If the goal was always make my insurance less, like, okay,
I mean,
you will
have a floor to that. There's a floor to that.
Yeah.
But
you can always make it less, and you can always, but like if you put just a little bit of energy and trust into somebody, that you can make it much better. I used to stress out about all the insurance stuff, and I don't necessarily anymore. I mean, it like, I know things like I don't have flood coverage. And so when my warehouse flooded, I went up there to lift everything off the ground because I knew it wasn't covered and I knew it was flooding. So there you go. Right. But like, there's always going to be that kind of, but with the other stuff, I just call him and I'm like, do I need to be worried about this? Did I do this right? And it's a real fast text message. Yeah, no, get this, don't do that. And I I don't think I could put a price on having that not be a worry. So I think it's really important that when you're picking your person or your product or anything as a dealer, there's a huge advantage to negotiating through quality, not through that, like not through price necessarily.
Yeah.
So anyway,
It's almost like an interview process, right? You're not gonna
right.
hire an attorney to represent your business that doesn't have any experience in the industry or doesn't have an understanding of your business, right? And so that's kind of where we're coming from here is what I really want. And this is the hardest part, and I really want to get to a point where we're spending more time here, but I really need the clients and prospects that we're working on to just say, you're the guy, I trust you, go do it. And then I'm going to ask you a million questions, because there are a million different ways that something can happen. And and then we're gonna land at a place where I understand what your risk tolerance is, where you live, and to know that you can always pick up the phone and have a conversation with me or my team to walk you through that. One of the biggest things we're dealing with right now is that there has never been a moment where garage policies, which is the liability piece of your business as a dealer, has covered operations outside of how you operate your business. So events are not covered. Group rides are not covered, have never been covered. Poker runs are not covered, have never been covered. And you as the dealer, as the business owner or as the general manager, can make the decision on if you want to cover that. But I want to make sure that they're aware that if you're doing these things, this is what the risk is on how you're currently insured. And if you want to make sure you're insured correctly, we can put that in place. And if you want to, if you make the decision on how you want to handle this. And what's happened now is that I've gotten into situations where I'm way more detail oriented, and I have these conversations because I know the questions that I would have had if I was on the other side of this, whether it be a dealership or one of my other clients, because we've had to make those decisions. And I've gotten to a point now, one of my larger clients that's a big dealership group where I'm getting pushback from some of the GMs going, hey, our other guy never made us go through these hoops. I was like, the fact of the matter is that you never had coverage for any of this. I'm just making you aware that if you want to make sure these things are covered, we can create policies to make these individual things covered. But you as a dealership sell and service motorcycles, power sport equipment, whatever you sell. That is what you're insured to do. You're not insured to have a circus in your parking lot. We can insure the circus, but that's not included in your garage.
Well, wait. I have big top coverage. I pay extra for that, so I can have a circus in the parking lot.
If you have a big top policy, you're good.
Today's episode is brought to you by Neuro, the gum and mint. It's incredible because it's got not only L-theanine, but it's got zero sugar and, most importantly, a crap ton of caffeine. If you need a bunch of caffeine to get through your days because, life's hard, just take one of these. They're really great. They're delicious. I'm sure you're going to like it. And if you don't, then don't eat more of them, but just send them to me. So, cheers.
You're good. No, so from a dealer lab perspective, I think my point is just as a dealer, there are certain things that you should take off your plate of concern, and value is different than dollar amount. Insurance is one of them. If you explicitly trust a rep, a company that comes in and fills up your nuts and bolts, which nobody should trust those people, just I'm saying.
Oh yeah, Worth. No,
yeah. Oh, I didn't know. I wasn't gonna say the name.
I guess we're never get sponsored by Worth, but
yeah, right. Yeah, you have like 37 cases of brake clean underneath the counter. But if you trust a rep like that, take that off the plate, man. It's really important to get some of these big things handled by a professional who understands the industry and does the things. So you have too much stuff to worry about. And then the premium is going to be what the premium is, because if that person screws you, well, you trusted the wrong person. And I think that's just an important thing to remember. Anyway, sorry, Max, you were going to take this someplace else.
I was thinking, you're right. I want to finish that statement, that thought, at least. You're an advisor Like in the simplest way, you're just like a service advisor, where the ideal service advisor is making sure that the customer knows all the things that not just they need absolutely to keep themselves safe, but the things that like they may want to consider. And I'm going to lay out the whole picture for you and explain to you why all these different components of the picture make sense. And then you are going to make the most informed decision now because of that. And so I think, Justin, what you're saying and kind of what Zach is, at least in my eyes, is the person who, yeah, you know what? I am going to ask more questions than probably any other insurance broker ever has of your company. And that's not to try and get more money out of you or screw you over and other things. It's that I want to understand what's going on, and I want you to understand every single option out there. And then if you don't want the big top coverage, or if you don't want to cover that group ride that you're having, then don't do it. And so I bring that up because that was an exact conversation that you and I had. We were talking about doing an event, right? We're doing an event that is going to take place outside of normal business hours. And I was like, all right, we're going to throw this party. We have this much of a budget. We're going to do these things. There's no rides, just people showing up to the store. And it was literally a conversation of, okay, well, look, if you want to cover that, it's going to cost this much. It would cover if somebody trips or falls, or if somebody gets food poisoning, or if all these things happen, this is how you would cover that. If you don't care about that, then you're not covered, but that's up to you. That's your decision. But like that's
Risk appetite.
It's a risk appetite conversation.
The other piece of this too is
to have.
how are you insurable?
Okay.
So there's the risk appetite question to say, I'm going to make a decision whether or not to cover these things. That's your decision holistically, because you're insuring a dealership, and there are very few markets that write these dealerships. If they, there's a full audit that's done through looking at your websites and all these pieces, and they may go, we don't want to look at this risk because they're serving alcohol at their dealership, which you should never do. And even if they have coverage for that outside, that's too much of a risk for us as the garage underwriter to be able to write this coverage. So yes, there's a threshold of risk that you can take as a dealer, but there's a certain point where you're going to be uninsurable. And so those are the conversations that you also need to have with your. And we're only and I'll say this too, as the broker and as the person that's communicating with the market, we're only as strong as the information that we're given. Right. And so,
well, right. That's why you denied my when I approached you for the cocaine bar. You said that was not a coverage.
I was about to say, man, you've changed, man. Zach Materne.
Yeah, you used to be. Yeah, you used to be cool.
Pass out alcohol at dealerships.
I tell you, my big top coverage got so expensive after the first elephant trampoline, and it was cool, bro. Like I was all over YouTube, and yeah, you know what? It's okay. You couldn't stay cool the whole time. You're an insurance guy, right? So you gotta. It's fine. It's fine. Okay,
so
no cocaine bar.
The direction that I was originally trying to go in was, okay, what are the if we're going to talk about just the bare bones, the basics of coverage for a store, there is garage liability. And there is what else?
So let's talk about let's break it down even further. You have casualty coverage.
Okay.
Which
what
is
that cover?
Liability. That's the liability side of it.
And that covers what?
That's your general liability. That's
if somebody falls.
Emissions. Well, that's somebody falls. If you have something like errors and emissions coverage, all these things that are included.
Okay, let's go through what you're like, okay, well, then this coverage, and then you got this coverage. All right, how about we just go one coverage at a time, and you tell me what that coverage does.
Hold on, because there's a lot, right?
Yeah, we can be here for 20 minutes.
Is this legally what you need to operate your business?
What do we legally need to operate
a business?
Bare minimum.
I mean, first of all, it depends on what your state requires you to have a dealer license and to have an occupational license. I'll tell you, number one, this is something that I've run into a lot recently. I think that Wells Fargo had not been auditing their certificates of insurance over the last couple months or something, and then now they're realizing that a bunch of dealers don't have inventory coverage. And so this year I've gotten 5 calls where we're last minute placing coverage, and the manufacturers are calling me and going, can you get this done quick? And so, and so getting that piece done, but it also, then you start peeling stuff back and you're like, wait, you're not insured at all. And so, there are all these pieces here. And so I think there's some people out there that are just going to insure themselves for the bare minimum of what they need to stay operating, to keep the banks off their backs and keep the stay off their backs. I don't advise in that. but that's that's a reality.
Can you tell us what coverage keeps the state and the banks off your back though?
Well, it
We'll
depends on your
go.
state. Some
We'll
states
go
just won't.
state by state
Yeah.
and go
Yeah.
alphabetical.
Okay.
Just, I mean, you have said the names of 3 different types of policies, and you've explained nothing of them. Can you please
So
just
let's just talk about.
slow down? I gave you one too many caffeine mints before we started this. What is general liability? What does it cover? What is errors and omissions? What does it cover? What things do you need to run the dealership that's downstairs? What do we need?
Let's just talk. We'll talk. So typically, these policies are sold in a package.
Okay.
That are
Got
all
that, Max?
the
Package.
How do you spell that? Okay. All right.
That's what autocorrect is for.
Chat GPT.
Max, I think general liability generally covers liability.
Yeah, that's how I understand it as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe that's my problem. I should just.
Yeah, so you've got your casualty side, which is going to be your general liability, your completed operations, which covers the operation of what you do, which primarily is the service side, right? And that piece of it, but that's going to be that's the general liability is going to cover your
That you are
tripping and falling.
that you're a building that's open, that people come in if they hurt themselves in your building, your
any
general liability
any
coverage.
business is going to need that type of coverage.
Great.
What's unique to what we do is this completed operations piece, which is what the work that you do.
Okay.
Then there's the pieces of this that are kind of driven by the finance office, like the errors and omissions. There's also errors and omissions on the mechanics side as well too. This is, let's just use an example of a bad title, someone that, maybe it's not a clear title. And I think, Justin, we've had one of these before where there's title issues. Then we would engage that errors and omissions coverage, covering you for what you're doing in your finance office. And those are I'm speaking in very general terms right here. Then you have workers' comp coverage. And depending on the state you're in, some states are monopolistic, so that comes from the state. But where it's not monopolistic, you can purchase it either from your payroll company or you can purchase it as an overall policy that you buy through your property and casualty broker like myself. That's going to cover your employees as they work and if they get hurt on the job and those pieces of this. And that's probably the most competitive piece of this. That's usually that's a pretty simple piece of the simplest piece to place in this business.
Okay.
Then you go into your property coverage, which is going to cover the building if you're required to finance, to insure the building if you don't own it and you have a triple net lease. Also make sure your brokers are reviewing your leases to make sure that if you are required to carry building coverage, that you are requiring building coverage and that the landlord is listed as an additional insured and all these pieces that I've experienced all of this because you can't just go off of necessarily what you remember as the dealer principal or as the general manager. It's like asking the right questions to get to the right answers so that we're good there. There's also business personal property, which is the contents inside of the building. So your parts, accessories, clothing, furniture, fixtures, equipment, everything that if you turn the building upside down, it would fall. There's also
That covers the major units? That covers
No.
vehicles?
No,
Okay, that does not cover
They
vehicles.
vehicles. That's vehicles.
If I turned the building upside down, they would fall.
I hadn't even finished my thought yet.
Well, you have to.
there was
talk
a,
faster.
there
You're
was a
talking
comma
faster.
there.
You told me to slow down.
Zach, my
kidding.
my tire machine is mounted to the floor, so
It is not covered.
Well, and there is there's also inland marine coverage, which covers some like serialized equipment that would be a
Inland
separate
marine?
Inland marine.
Would we need to have inland marine?
Yeah, like we on your policy, I think we have the forklift on this policy with the forklift listed on there.
Inland marine.
Inland marine.
It's not vehicle coverage on the company vehicle. It is titled equipment that is in the
That
building.
needs to be scheduled, like scheduled equipment.
Scheduled
right.
equipment. What do you mean by scheduled?
But it's got a serial number. Like you're
Okay,
not
gotcha.
going to schedule every exhaust you have.
Yeah.
but you're not talking about like a delivery van. You're talking about like equipment.
Yeah, but it could also be. That coverage also sometimes has other sublimits of like employee tools and other pieces on this. And we could literally talk about every single line item of policy for hours. And you just give me a call and I can go through this with you.
But what is
No, I'm not done with this yet.
No, I'm.
FF&E.
garage policy?
So garage policy is a, like I said, that's the garage coverage is what is the type of insurance you need as a dealership. It's a large auto policy basically.
Is this
The
different
liability,
than
the
package program?
liability, I'm kind of like, I'm backing up again because he asked the question. Like, so it's a commercial, it's based
I
on a
just said
large
words.
commercial auto policy.
Large
Right? Because
policy.
any premium has to be based off of an exposure.
Okay.
And the exposure in the situation, in the case of a dealership, would be revenue, number of employees, number of dealer plates, all these things that could create exposure. If you have 100 dealer plates and 1,000 employees, there could be 100 employees on your vehicles at any time and 900 of them riding customer vehicles, right? So that's where that liability coverage comes in, because you're not just covering trips and falls, you're also covering what happens in the company vehicles or in the inventory or when you're operating a customer's vehicle as well.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a massive. It's endless for dealership as to what it could be covered and could go wrong, right? I mean, like,
Which is why we have to, collect driver's license numbers for everyone that's in the store, even if they're not operating vehicles, because
You're saying of employees
if
or?
they have access
Yeah.
to keys, they could,
Oh, yeah.
that's an exposure for you.
Okay, so let's
They
get
may
back
not
to
know
it.
if they're scheduled or not on the policy,
So-
right? So at least we've run their motor vehicle record and say these people are absolutely not insurable.
Yeah. So you've
Right.
you've told us now we had business personal property, which would be FF&E, fixtures, furniture, equipment. That would also cover parts inventory,
Parts, accessories, apparel.
accessories, and apparel. Okay, so pack as well.
So making sure you're looking at your balance sheet, looking at where those inventory levels min, max, and averages over a year.
Okay.
So if there is a total loss, you're as accurate as possible, because all that stuff will be audited in a loss, and you want to make
Okay.
sure we're there.
All right, hold on. We're going back to the things that are in your package. 7, we talked about inland marine, and I'll go through all these just to make sure I've got them all right. Inland marine is the equipment that you have in there. What covers the inventory, the major units that are on the showroom floor?
Before I get there, there's also garage keepers coverage. That's
Okay,
that's
there we go. That's the garage thing you asked. So is
garage keepers. Yeah, I know,
Thanks.
that's the vehicles that are in your care, custody, and control.
okay, that's customers' units.
Right. That's a piece. That's a property piece, as well. But yeah, if it falls off of a lift or
Yep. It
and,
gets stolen while it's in the shop or something like
yeah, and there's pieces there too about releasing liability to on your work orders, so that there's some things that
Zach.
maybe are outside of your control.
do you remember this story? Just because we're talking about garage keepers policy, and this is a great story. Do you remember when I used to work at Erico? We used to park all the service bikes outside along the street, and we had a huge service department. There was 80 bikes out there, and one day I went out to check in a bike, and it was covered in hydraulic fluid, which isn't great for paint.
Really?
And then I went to the bike next to it, and it was also covered in hydraulic fluid.
No.
And we went down the line, and a dump truck had left a construction site, and it was dropping the bed and blew a hydraulic line and kept driving, drove by the side of the building, and literally soaked 80 customer motorcycles in hydraulic fluid.
Oh my god.
Do you ever remember that story?
I
As
do.
the bed fell. And we followed the line, went around the corner, and then it dissipated. We never found the truck.
Jesus.
And so it ended up having to go through our insurance. Now, I wasn't running things back then, so I do not know exactly what happened with how that shook out money
Gotta
wise.
get John on and figure out how that happened.
But we cleaned up everything, and there was damage. I mean, it had damaged finishes on most of those motorcycles, and it was a wild once in a lifetime thing. But like, yeah, it was like worst case scenario. Finally misted hydraulic fluid all over every single motorcycle that was outside.
What coverage should they have had?
That'd be, well, if
that-
it's customers' vehicles, that'd be garage keepers.
Garage
If it's
keepers.
inventory, that would be your
Keepers.
dealer inventory coverage. But I mean, yeah,
Right.
like
Oh,
another instance of a client who had a person they were in a city and had vehicles on the sidewalk, and a Lime scooter, drunk on a Lime scooter, runs into a line of bikes and knocks the whole line of bikes down. Right, like those, like
Oh, dude.
like all these things that like.
Do you know what? It's funny. This shit happens all the time. It really happens all the time. I was just thinking, oh, it's once a lifetime experience. That's not true. When we were in Marin, a kid came around a corner in a Mustang, hit a dumpster, and yeeted it into all of our parked motorcycles. Knocked out. I think they took out 7 motorcycles.
And he was
Happens all
uninsured
the
and
time.
didn't have a driver's license.
Yeah.
That is accurate, and it wasn't his car. He worked for a shop. He was driving somebody else's car for the shop. That was a dirty one.
Middle of the night calls.
Yeah.
So you were asking about, so then there's dealer inventory coverage. And this is something that
What about long-term, garage keepers that include long-term storage bikes?
long-term storage bikes should not be scheduled in that. You should be releasing liability. And actually you should be releasing liability on your work orders too. Because in the event of a total loss, these customers have coverage. So if we're at a point where we're subrogating, look, we've got to figure out how to get all this stuff going.
So the release liability makes sure that the liability doesn't fall in the store, so that it can fall on the whole coverage.
Yeah,
that
like cover yourself wherever you can. Because if someone leaves their bike with you forever, it's like, at what point, like, I mean, it's one thing if it falls off of a lift while you're operating it or you're moving it around. Once it's sitting in your warehouse, make sure that you're also acknowledging the fact that, hey, that you got a piece of this as well. Long-term storage, though, that is not included. You want to make sure that you are making sure that if the clients want to make sure they've got property coverage, that they understand they've got to carry a certain amount of property coverage, and you are releasing yourself from the liability of insuring those vehicles.
Good to know.
That is not included in garage keepers.
Okay, so we got garage keepers. What else? I mean, we got 9 of them so far. I'm going to go back through them in a second, but
Well, so you're talking about dealer inventory.
Yeah.
So there are dealers that buy the inventory coverage through the floor plan company.
Mm-hmm.
And all that's doing is protecting the floor plan company.
Oh, okay.
What happens about the bike you just took in on trade? And look, if you don't want to insure that, that's up to you. But you're not covered for that. You're covered for the vehicles that are on the floor plan,
Okay.
that are not paid off.
Okay.
If they're paid off, they're not on the floor plan anymore.
So
real quick, does that transfer to a used floor plan potentially if they own
you
a
have a
percentage
used
of
floor
that?
plan, and depending on the some of the floor plan companies require you to report it's like a self audit every month of what you have to buy the insurance if you're buying it through them. Others are you put the VIN in and they're going to charge you $11 a month until it sells. But as long as it's there, there's coverage on it because the bank is trying to make sure that their asset is insured.
Right.
The other part of this too is that, like, so for new vehicles, they're going to be able to go off the inventory. Off of the invoice for the value.
Yeah.
On a used vehicle, they're going to use market value. So if you take a bike in for $3,000 more than what it shows in a book for, they're going to pay you what it shows in the book for.
Gotcha. Okay. So the dealer inventory coverage, would that be on top of the floor? Like if the floor plan
No,
requires
so
you to cover as well?
sometimes there's some OEMs that require you to buy the coverage from them.
Okay.
To use so in those situations, we can go through all that. But let's just say in a situation where you're not required to buy the floor plan insurance from the OEM or the OEM's lender, then you want to make sure that you're looking at a min, max, and average so that we can get a number there. Now, some of these policies are reporting, so you report monthly. Some of them are non-reporting.
Okay.
But what you want to make sure is that you're insured that at the height of your season, if the building were to burn down, you'd be covered. And so what the dealer inventory coverage that's not placed by the floor plan company typically offers that the floor plan company's insurance does not offer. Number one is false pretense coverage. You were talking about You were talking about these fraudulent sales. There's no free false pretense coverage through the floor plan insurance. There's also not an aggregate typically.
So what that means is if somebody uses a fake ID or fake information, they get the motorcycle, you can't recover it.
Because I mean, you're the agent.
What are we paying for it? It is dealer inventory coverage that covers that. Floor plan coverage would not cover that.
There's usually not a limit in there for false pretense. So I mean, and so you're the agent for the bank when you finance a vehicle. If no one makes a payment on it, BMW Financial is going to say, we're going to draft this money out of your account.
Yeah.
And so the coverage there will allow you to be able to have that. If you don't have that coverage, then you're
false pretense falls in inventory, and then you're used or paid off.
And another piece of the false pretense too is that when these things happen, they don't happen once. Once a criminal realizes they can get a bike from you, they buy 4 or 5 from you for experience here.
Yep.
And you don't find out as the dealer until 4 to 6 months later when the bank goes, hey, no one's made a payment on this loan.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, so that's
you know,
why they
and,
get,
and I've had real world experience
bikes out
in
of
that,
it.
right? So making sure your limit is like, at least $100,000.
Yeah.
Here's the thing I will say. It wouldn't happen to us, but it does seem to happen to the dealership. And yeah, I'm gonna put that wherever you guys
Yeah. Yeah.
pay attention, right? But
Um,
full retail cross country doesn't make sense, man. I'm sorry. Full retail cross
Yeah.
country. There's a lot of bikes between
Look,
me
and I'm
and
going to tell
you.
you a situation where when I was running the store, I sold the last day of the year, full retail, every F&I product, every accessory, finance deal. Turned out to be fraudulent.
Of course, looking back on it, you're like, that was so
It
dumb.
was so dumb, but I was like, hey, I
It was
like
we needed to make this
payrolls
deal
next
happen.
week. We got like, I'm not going to tell this guy no. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then I ended up having to fly to California and get the bike back and go to court. And luckily, we got the vehicle back. There was depreciation.
wow.
It wasn't everything, right? But there was no coverage for that, right? And so that this is a real world example I can give to clients.
Personal real example.
Of
That
like
you
having
did
to
that.
like fly
Yeah.
to LA and go pick up a motorcycle.
I'll tell you
Um,
what, and theft recovery is exciting. I've done a couple too.
Yeah.
I haven't flown though. That's pretty cool. The ones because ours got put on a shipping container and are probably someplace not in the United States anymore. So
Yeah.
every time I see those BMWs doing wheelies down in South America, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, that was the same color. Like it's
Yeah.
I still appreciate the wheelies though. The kids in flip flops, man. Have you seen that
Oh
shit?
yeah. He's got like an
I-
R1250 GS,
like,
just ripping.
Yeah, listen.
12 o'clock.
Once
wheelies,
I
like,
got over the fact that cost me a bunch of money, it's still cool wheelies. Like, right? Kids
Yeah.
got to do wheelies.
So let's continue to talk about dealer inventory coverage.
Oh,
'Cause
thank
dealer
God.
inventory coverage also typically so if the garage liability portion is the liability part of your auto policy, the dealer inventory coverage is the physical damage portion of the vehicles, not only that you have in inventory, but could also be your company vehicles as well.
Oh, dealer inventory coverage can be company as well.
Yeah, company vehicles, company owned vehicles, and we
And that is like if they are damaged at the store,
right.
not necessarily if they're out on the road and you crash into somebody.
Either
That's
way,
still its own coverage.
This is like the physical damage coverage of the auto policy of like your company van in some situations.
Wow. So
They'll
dealer
put it on
inventory
there, yeah.
coverage. Do we need additional coverage on?
No,
the
it's just
company
that you
vehicles?
make sure you're putting that number in that limit.
Oh, okay.
So the
cool.
idea is like if you lose everything, you gotta make sure it's rare that you would lose everything, but it's not rare that you would have your company vehicle run into somebody, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's also included in that piece too.
So if we get in a fender bender in the company van, it's not like the policy we are using is a dealer inventory coverage policy.
Whether it's on a hard plate, a lot of the times, or on a dealer plate.
Okay.
But we need to make sure that we know that if they're on dealer plates or hard plates, they're on hard plates. We got to make sure we schedule them so that we let the state know that they still have insurance on them.
Okay.
So that's all part of this too. So, trying to think what else we've got left. That's kind of a very high level of the dealer inventory program.
All right.
We've also got employment practice liability, which is covering you as the employer from sexual harassment, wrongful termination, all those things too. It's also important to note, like if you bind coverage tomorrow, I don't know, today's the whatever tomorrow's date is, the coverage starts that day. So if you have a claim that from an employee, if you have coverage in place, but the employee situation happened in the previous year and there was no coverage, then you're not covered. So if you currently have an employment practice liability policy and then we move it to another market, we've got to make sure we put that retroactive date in there.
Gotcha.
We have a lot of stories of people using that coverage, and it isn't them necessarily; it's their employees. But like, it's a gross industry in some cases.
So that is not workers' comp. Workers' comp is in no workers' comp and employment practice are different coverages. Workers' comp is
making the employee whole if they get hurt on the job.
But if you're creepy, get yourself some employment practice coverage because that's gonna cover you because
or if you have a real creepy sales manager, that happens.
I want to see how like the exposure audit works on like the level of creepiness.
And look, we're hitting things real high right here.
Yeah, we are. I know. I just want that was the whole point. That was the whole objective.
We haven't talked about cyber coverage yet, which is
coverage.
Relatively inexpensive. There's less of a chance that you're going to get hacked because you're probably not keeping your customers' information on a server that's internal. However,
what about my DMS?
If your DMS gets hacked, making sure you've got some sort of third-party coverage.
Would that be cyber coverage?
Your DMS goes down. for a certain amount of time, making sure there's a business interruption limit in there. But if there is a situation where, you've got some sort of malicious intent, like somebody sending a link that you click and it locks up your computers and asks you for some sort of ransom. There's ransom coverage in there.
That is in the cyber coverage?
Yeah, there is.
Okay.
There's also limits in there for reputation management, right? So if it's a situation
Reputation management.
where it hits the media and you need PR, there's pieces of that in there. And typically these policies have got an immediate response team. So you would actually engage, if you know something's happening, you would immediately engage them.
Cyber coverage has reputation management in it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
Interesting.
Okay. So I've got 10 things that I think are like the basics of what a dealership would need. First off, property, which covers the actual physical building itself.
And
Second,
the contents.
And the contents, but contents, not the fixtures, furniture, and equipment.
Well, I mean, that's in the property policy. There's a business personal property limit.
Just call Zach.
I know. I understand that this is so complicated.
You know what else
That's
I
why
forgot
you
to
have a
mention?
job.
You know what else I forgot
I'm
to
trying
mention
to.
is
Okay. What?
business
What else?
business interruption insurance.
This is why people hate insurance people. Business interruption
Don't hate
insurance.
me.
I'm not. No, I don't hate you.
You're at the game.
Business interruption.
What
Okay.
about terror attack coverage?
So that's interesting. There's always these terrorist elements, but what will engage terrorism coverage is very arduous. It has to be, first of all,
Considered
a federal terror attack, and it has to hit all these. So what happened in New Orleans last year?
Yeah.
A lot of these policies have got 72-hour wait periods. They reopened Bourbon Street within 24 hours. So if you were closed down, so there's all these pieces of
didn't
that.
fall into terrorists.
Didn't fall
because
into
it had to
terrorism.
be closed for 72 hours.
Yeah, I mean, that was. I'm using that as an example of a
Yeah.
conversation I had with the broker that had started a restaurant on Bourbon Street, and
Yeah.
being like, "Hey, I've never seen this before. Talk through me how this works."
Yeah.
So, like, if a restaurant that had a bunch of reservations that couldn't open that Saturday,
Yeah.
lost $200,000 of revenue or something, if it wasn't closed for 72 hours, then you couldn't even have.
Wow.
I'm using very general,
Yeah.
like interpretations of what could have happened.
Okay. We hold your comments to the end. Okay. Because I know you've got so much you want to add to it, but tell me if I'm right or wrong when I got time to get to it. Okay. Number one, property.
Wrong.
God damn it.
Dude, I hate you so much because I was about to just do the same exact thing. Like, why? This
I'm
is
not
why
letting
we're
this-
friends.
You say too much
This is why
information.
we're friends. I
Okay,
literally was waiting, and you did it first.
Okay, here we go. 1, properties covering the building itself. 2, general liability. It's the people in the building, right? General liability. It's like the generally your customers in the building.
Really hard
If
to
you can fall.
talk right now.
You better not say shit right now. 3, complete operations. So the work that you're actually doing in the building, the service advisors, the salespeople doing that, not the people themselves, but the work that you're doing. Don't you say anything. I know you want to. 4, workers' comp is actually covering the employees. 5, errors and omissions, bad communication that the employees are doing and not actually sharing the right information with them. Employment practice covers the operator because, if you're creepy, then that has to be covered. 6, business personal property, which is the FF&E or all your parts, accessories, clothing, all the stuff that you're selling in the store. 7 is dealer inventory coverage. That's actually the products themselves. There is also flooring coverage, which is the flooring company having you cover their insurance. The difference between those is that if you own used inventory or pay off the inventory, that covers that. But also dealer inventory coverage covers your company vehicles and sale under false pretenses. Don't say anything yet. 8, garage keepers is customers' units. So you've got major unit inventory and dealer inventory coverage, but your service products or service customers are all in garage keepers policy because you're holding onto their products. Then there's inland marine, which is for equipment that has a serial number or can be titled like forklifts and that kind of stuff. Trailers, maybe? Inland marine?
Killers are usually licensed. And they have VIN numbers.
So would that be inland marine or that would be
plates.
You would put that would be on the garage liability policy
Registered.
for auto.
Because they have plates. Because they have their license.
Gotcha. Okay. So that means we get to number 10, cybersecurity coverage, and 11, business interruption insurance.
And that's all we have.
Okay.
See you later.
Okay, wait. Before you say anything, hold your tongue. it's important, I think, to recognize that you're wrong, Max. Like what you said was so broadly overviewed.
Yep.
That it's really important to recognize this is why you need somebody you trust who's a professional.
100%.
Because even though that was like a real basic rundown of everything, the inconsistencies can be dangerous to a business because we'll never know. It's not our job to know. I don't want to know. I want to know how to sell more motorcycles, have a good time, and do wheelies. I don't want to know this. And the truth is that is a much better understanding of the insurance conversation than most people have with that list you just wrote down, and it's still not right.
That's
So-
exactly why I wanted to do this, because
Right.
I thought there's probably three packages that will pretty much cover everything. There's 11 things in here, and I'm sure you could add a million more and a bunch more details, but 11 different policies that if you don't have one of these, it could put your business under.
Can Zach talk?
Yeah.
Finally, yes.
It's about 11 different policies because there were things that you said that are included in certain, like property insurance covers the building,
Okay.
the contents.
Right.
Now,
11 different things, not
11
policies.
yeah, and then garage liability covers the auto liability of the business, covers
Okay.
completed operations. You know, so I don't think all the things you're talking about are all coverages that you should look at, consider. Some stuff's required, some stuff you
Make sure you have it.
Make sure you have a conversation about it. But
Yeah.
what you know, as much as I've been able to communicate in this hour what I do, what you're just proving is that what you hear is different than what I'm saying. And so it's important that I say things more than once to clients. So
Zach,
they're
to
not
be
as
fair,
confused
Max,
as you are.
Max
So-
does have that problem even outside of the insurance conversation,
hate
though,
being
sometimes.
I
He
hate it.
does. He does. have
It's
a
actually way
tendency.
simpler than the way that you interpreted it.
Yeah.
But
I don't believe
It's a lot.
it's
No,
still,
no. It's a lot, and it's also legal. It's also nuanced. There's also finite details. It also, don't be offended, doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter to the day-to-day operations. It matters to
But-
you, but you shouldn't be thinking about all those details. You should have the conversation. You should talk about your risk appetite. You should get it into the hands of a professional, and then you should operate under the guidelines that they give you. It's like my test ride forms. I tried to change my test ride forms like 9 times because I don't like them. And Zach finally said, listen, dude, use the test ride form that I gave you or you won't be covered. And I said, oh, okay. And I stopped trying to change it. And I used the one that I have and that he gave me. Right. And
that
so
was approved by
like
the
that's,
underwriter, right.
yeah, it was approved by the underwriter. And however much I wanted to logo it up and shorten it and change the words in ChatGPT, it wasn't approved by the underwriter. And that's all that matters.
Well, I
So
think
now
what's
we
really
have
important here to sum that up. What you're saying is, and what I really want to stress is that it is a relationship that requires 100% transparency from both sides, so that there's trust in place that us as the broker has the correct information and you as the dealer has the correct information, because we don't truly know what's going to happen until something happens. And then it's the service of the broker that is either going to be able to navigate things within the policy or to find ways to make it work, or say, hey, this isn't going to work. I mean, we could do as best as we possibly can and try to cover everything. There's always going to be gray area that we're going to have to figure out. And so you're paying the money. Stop looking at this as just an expense that you hate doing every year. Find somebody that you can trust to at least understand your business.
Yeah.
And keep selling motorcycles and ATVs, UTVs, and personal watercraft.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, every year I figure out a new creative way to come up with something that isn't covered that I just do. So that's something that we have to have a conversation about. There's really creative ways to screw up, guys. That's the second podcast. Let's talk about all the ways we can screw this up, because we can invent new ones. I do pretty frequently, actually.
That sounds like a great plan. Awesome. Hey, thank you for sharing that. I mean, you're right. I thank you for confusing me more, not in a bad way, in a way that I am so glad you're the guy that's doing insurance and not me, because I don't want to do it. As long as you just tell me, hey, am I covered for all these things we want to do? That's perfect. So,
Hit a button. Yay.
oh yeah.
Not that one, sicko.
It's not the one.
What's weird now, I can't hear your buttons, so my reaction is not natural.
It was
it a
it
good
was
one?
you screaming. It was weird.
Fair enough.
Man.
Well, thank you guys for having me today.
Yeah, of course. No, thanks for coming out, man.
For flying in.
Uptown. Yeah, thanks for flying in, sitting on the couch. Yeah, we'll see you at dinner soon.
Happy Mardi
I'll
Gras.
see you at Mardi Gras this weekend.
Yeah. See you there. I'll probably see you tomorrow
go.
for Cleo.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. See ya.
Bye, Justin.
See you, Justin.
Later, guys.